others, that they don't need a refugee from Europe, from Jews don't need to come in.
Zalman, let me just respond. Your history is told. There's not a question about that. Because and didn't understand, people didn't get a chance to escape. Because there are people who didn't care, people died. But it's not because of disunity. Okay? It's not because of that. Now, today, in today's press, comes out a report that the collection of British intelligence organisations said 3 weeks ago there is no organisation that's capable of committing terror in England. The MI5 and the whole lot. They made a mistake. Okay? The Jewish world didn't understand. And yes, there were people who called him a fascist, and they didn't want to hear. There were Rebbeim who told their Hasidim, stay, the God will take care of us. They were fools. They were responsible for death and mayhem. But they made mistakes. They just made mistakes. Now, there were malicious components as well. When Ben-Gurion ordered the shelling of the Altalina, and Yitzhak Rabin was the officer who gave that order, I haven't forgotten that. I wasn't alive, but I was educated. I read the book, The Revolt. We've got vigorous debate in our Zionist world, and sometimes it's wrong. And he said there will be civil war, and there are still people who say that if he wouldn't have given the order, there would have been civil war. We know it's nonsense because Menachem Begin says you're not going to fight back even then. Mistakes. But that didn't cause the Holocaust. The Holocaust was caused by one man together with a group of others who incited the activity of a Nazi movement and was aided and abetted by Poles and Ukrainians and Hungarians and people all over the world. And I want to tell you a story, a brief one, and I think people want to eat. I was invited to a lunch together with Michael Lipschutz from the Jewish Community Council of Victoria to meet with Lech Walesa, who was the former president of Poland, the leader of Solidarity. He broke the communism, great hero. And we had the lunch here at the State Parliament. State Parliament, there were just 14 people. And Michael and I are the two Jewish representatives. It was very nice, they invited us. And they sat us on a table like this, and I'm sitting in the middle, and Lech Walesa is sitting right there. And I told him that I was invited to ask the first question. So I said to him, you know, my daughter next year is going to go on March of the Living. She's going to go to Poland. It was 2 years ago. She's going to go on March of the Living. And I'm concerned because I've heard from previous reports that there's a very anti-Semitic tension in the area when the people go. And I would not like my daughter to experience that. She's never experienced that in her life. He said to me, there's no anti-Semitism in Poland. No anti-Semitism in Poland. We're totally against anti-Semitism in Poland. I'm against anti-Semitism. Well, I said, you know, they're going to go to Auschwitz-Birkenau and they're going to go to the camps. 3 million of our people died in Poland. And it was aided and abetted and conducted by Poles. And yes, there were righteous people, and there are people in this community who say they were saved by Poles. Okay. But it happened there, and that's the history. He says, Dr. Lamm, in Polish everything was translated. By the way, the translator was a dentist, a Polish dentist who lives here, who knows me professionally. And so he's translating, and he says, do you know why it happened in Poland? I mean, it happened then, it's not now. Why? Because in the whole of Europe there was anti-Semitism, and Jews couldn't live anywhere, so they all came to Poland, and too many came. And you know, when too many come, then people react against it, and that's why otherwise we were no different to any of the others. Okay? Okay, you know, it's delusional. Okay, but it's based on an inherent hate. That's our reality. But we're not going to blame Jewish people. If Jewish people made mistakes because they didn't encourage people to leave and they didn't understand.
Of action, what people doing sometimes. If you go into the shop,
Zalman, what I said was not a mistake. Was not a mistake. It shouldn't have happened.
If you go into the shop buying from something for $10 which costs $5, well, you make a mistake. If you're doing something similar for yourself, you make a mistake.
Zalman, I think I understand.
But in 1943, One small sample that what happened in 1943 in one small village in Poland. German coming, of course it was a period of Holocaust, and they talked to the Jewish management of that small city and explained that they need children. They need children, they will take those children and give them education space and so on, and just
You
organize
are talking about Judenrat, we know the stories, and they were far worse than that. And they went
Simon, I really think that now is not the time. We definitely understand the point you're trying to make, and I'm sure Daniel will speak to you offline. I'd like to finish on a positive note, as we started. And the point of the matter is, as Danny alluded to before, the answer is in Matovo Oyalacha Yaakov. If our tents are filled with Jewish pride, with Jewish good deeds, then we will definitely sustain, and God promises us that that will be so. Now, I'd just like to thank you, Danny, and I must say, I don't hear you speak often, and I'm quite, I'm taken aback, and I don't know words to express, but I thank you, because it seems to me that, as President, sometimes, your time is very precious, and, sometimes you have to be very discriminating in the speaking engagements that you accept. And it seems to me that, from lunches with dignitaries and parliamentarians to speaking engagements with us, not to say that we're insignificant, but we really do appreciate it, and hearing you really makes me, and I'm sure others, I'm very happy that you are one of our leaders and leading the Zionist organisations here in Victoria and Australia, and representing us to the world, even if some of your personal views are not necessarily reflected in those organisations. Thanks very much, Danny. Please join me. Lunch is now